Okay, so here I am sitting with the lovely Poppy Rose, who I met through the Human Library. And obviously the Human Library is about sort of understanding people that have labels. Obviously, Poppy Rose has a label of transgender.
I have a few labels, as I have to say. But being transgender is one of them.
But
And,
we are going through the
here.
transgender label. So
I am at the moment, yes.
Yes, so this is how I
Yes,
met Poppy, and obviously I've become her friend, and would like to interview her to learn some stuff, and hopefully people will learn some stuff as well.
I'll be glad to talk to you. You know, if I can help you out anyway, just ask.
This is it. So we have two lots of questions. We have questions about being transgender and going through the transition, and then some personal ones about yourself as an individual, of course.
I love personal questions, Derek.
This is it. They're not rude, so you know.
Oh, that's a disappointment.
No, we'll move on. Anyway, so the first question I've got is, how long have you felt you were a female inside?
Well, I always say, Terry, that I knew the day I was born. But that in itself is a bit of a silly thing to say, really. But I think I can safely say that I knew the moment I could tell the difference between light and day, that there was something wrong. That everything wasn't right. I didn't know what it was, and nobody at that age would ever know what it was. But I have felt misaligned with something all my life. You know, gender dysphoria to me is nothing new. It's just the only thing that knew is the actual name. For 30, 40 years of my life, I never heard of the word.
But at what point did you realise that that's what it was?
I suppose when I started, I was about 5, 6 years ago, I realised there was a name to it. I always knew who I wanted to be, and you know, but I didn't realise there was a name to what it was. I'll be honest, like everybody else, I think I felt that I was the only one. You know, this is me. I was a bit strange in a way. It wasn't really until the onset of the internet that we kind of find out that there is others like us. There's loads of people feel the way I do, and that there are things I can do about it to make my feelings right.
But was you pleased that you'd realised, or scared that you'd have to go through that?
I would say I was probably scared, I think, because the realisation of what it was, that all my life, why I felt different, was scary. But it was also pleased to a certain extent that I could do something about it. It was a certain amount of release, because it was affecting me in very bad ways. You know, I was suicidal, to be honest with you. I felt so different. But then to realise that there was, I'm not going to say a cure, because it certainly isn't a cure, something I could do about it, it was a relief off my mind. The trouble was, although I knew you could do things about it, how I went about doing that, I had no idea. It was, again, only from meeting people and talking about it that I realised the route I could go down to do it, you know. But I think scared is one way of putting it, and excited it's probably both. I think, you know, excitement that I perhaps could be the person I want to be. You know,
release a bit of pain.
Oh, there's a lot of pain. Yeah, just live how I want to live. You know, instead of having to wear male clothes, you know, I could be myself. You know, instead of having to act macho as I used to do when I masquerade as a man. You know, lorry driver, pretend I'm tough and all that rubbish. I could be myself. People see me as I am. So there was a tremendous release in that. Just to wear the proper clothes for me is fantastic. You know.
Did you get a buzz out of that?
A buzz is the wrong word, right? I think a buzz is the wrong word.
Okay, wrong word.
I got gender satisfaction, maybe. I don't know. I just felt it just felt right for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt right. I mean, I've got used to wearing male clothes because all my life, I mean, maybe 30, 40 years, I suppose, I accepted that I would never be who I should have been. So you get used to it, right? But when I realised there was something I could do about it, I wouldn't say it was a buzz, because that sort of kind of refer a bit of a sexual thing, really. But for me, it was a release to finally be free to express myself as I am.
But did you feel more like yourself?
Oh yeah, more released, more liberated, without a doubt. But again, that was kind of scary, because at first I did what everybody else did. I hid it. I took cross-dressing, and then of course you had the fear of someone finding out. you know, and the effect that would have on your life. But in the end, for me, it got to the point where I had to be myself, or I would have killed myself. And I say that without a word of a lie. So the need becomes so great that
Yeah.
in the end, it overruled the effect it had on my life, you know. And in the end, I just found I couldn't take the clothes off. Once I transformed or to the female side of me, that was it. I didn't want to go back, you know. But that was probably the hardest bit actually. Back in the early years, was going back to being a male. But when I realised I didn't have to, and the world would accept me for being who I am, then that to me was one of the greatest things. You know.
I mean, I can say from a personal level that obviously through my mental health, you know, I've wanted to kill myself and stuff. And I think when people hear you say that, like, it doesn't really mean nothing.
No, it's very hard.
But
to
if you know what
feeling.
that feels like, and you know that you can do something to live
Yeah.
and what it takes, then I think, you know, why should anybody want to die? Why should anybody have to die because, you know, they can't be themselves?
The thing is, see, when you're transgender, everything that you do is wrong. You know, you're trying to be someone you're not.
Yeah.
Everything feels wrong, from the clothes you
Yeah.
wear to the people you see, the things you say.
Yeah.
And in the end, it just wears you down.
Yeah.
You know that, and you see people, natural born women, who can do it. You know, have a right to do it, and I think, why do I have a right to do it? Why can't I do it? And that is the depression that it brings on you when you. As I look in the mirror, is the most depressing thing for me. Sometimes now is I don't see who I am inside on the outside. You know, I mean, I hope I project who I am, but I never see it in the mirror, and that is for me, it's a very hard thing to endure, and that alone caused me lots of depression, and I think had there not been had I not been able to be who I am now, I wouldn't want to live. You know, I would have rather been dead than not be who I am now.
Wow.
Yeah.
No one wants to live a lie, do they, huh?
I've
It's
lived a
fake.
life.
It's all fake then, isn't it? Your whole life's fake.
I came out, for want of a better word, when I was, must have been like 45, 46, I suppose, or 48 now, so about 45, right? And until that time, I lived a lie. Everything I'd done was a lie.
Yeah.
Nobody knew how I felt
Yeah.
inside. And I hope I never lie again, because that's a horrible thing to have to lie to people you love. But I was so scared of being found out and what effect it would have on my life that I lied, you know. And I'm not alone in that. Every transgender person, or every person who is born with gender dysphoria has the same problem. You know, I think it's a lot easier now. But when I was young, you couldn't come and say, I want to be a woman. The world has strung you up. You know, you'd had a more horrific life than I did have. I would have paid a hell of a price for that.
We're here now, so
I am
let's
done.
move on. What was the moment you decided you had to go through the transition?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, there never was a moment. I think from when I was even a young child, because I can remember standing in fields and crying that I wasn't the same as my sister. I think I always knew that I would have to go through it. The moment came when I realised I could, I think, is rather than that I would have to. And it's probably came to a head, I suppose, like 3 or 4 years ago, when I was going out a lot to the pubs, etc., with cross-dresser friends, you know, particularly cross-dressed, and I was doing the same. And it just, for me, it evolved. The cross-dressing bit was just a way to understand my feelings, but it just got so strong that I knew it would come to the point where I'd have to. I think it's about over 2 years ago now, I think, the moment, which actually was a very terrifying moment for me, because I really recall going to the doctors. I went with a friend, and it originally, that I thought was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. But when I started talking to the doctor about how I felt, he was so understanding. He didn't judge in any way. And I thought, all these years I've dreaded doing this, and it was not the terrifying that I thought it was. And I have to say, I wish to God I'd done it earlier.
And if the doctor would have been negative?
I think it would have had an effect on me, but the need to tell somebody to come out was so strong.
Yeah.
it wouldn't have made such a nice experience without a doubt. And I have to say, all thanks to the doctor, he was absolutely wonderful. But I see, even say, I can't really now describe to you how I felt, because it was such an emotional feeling that a lot of that, because I'm now 24/7, it's been released, you know. But it's kind of like a pressure cooker builds up, and my head was about to explode, this sort of thing. So, really, no matter how that had, if a doctor was negative, which he wasn't, I would have still had to tell him. But it was, I do recall it was not the scary moment I expected it to be. You know, I've had far scarier moments than that.
And when you was with your cross-dressing friends,
Yeah.
did you discuss that you wanted to?
Yeah, I did. It was often discussed, and to be honest with you, I don't really think any of them understood that. For me, it was evolving that that it would come to this, because I do recall wanted to ask why I wanted the operation, you know, and I think a lot of people, if you don't necessarily want it, I don't think you understand it, you know, like as a man, you tell a fella you want the operation, and the first thing he does is winces, you know, if he's Christ, you know, but to me it doesn't have an effect on that, you know.
But because they obviously cross-dress.
Yes, some understood, but I think the majority of them were in their, only understood it from their point of view. For what they did, their cross-dress was enough for them, and if that's fine, that's fine. But for me, it had to be more, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just got to the point where it is now, and I'm glad. Looking back, I wish I'd done it years ago, and I'd never go back to where I was. If the point came where I had to start dressing as a man, to be honest, I don't feel I wouldn't go on. I would find a way to end it all. You know, I could not go back to living a lie. But I say living a lie, and I lived a lie for, hell, it must be 54 years. I must have lived a lie. You know, I could never go back to that again.
Stay as you are then.
I intend to. It's onwards and upwards, as they say.
Too many people live a lie. This is it.
Yeah, that is the trouble with this world, unfortunately.
Right. So the next question is, what was it like living as a man, and then when you go through the transition and dress differently, obviously you would assume people start staring at you. What was that like going through that bit?
Well, living as a man, I actually think as a man I did a pretty good job, actually. I've got some wonderful children, right? And I was convincing as a man, I must admit. So living as a man was just really like any other man. It's just how I felt.
Nobody stared at you for that, obviously.
I possibly wasn't. I survived as a man, and I had lots of trouble, right? But it wasn't really for that reason. I went through, must have been about 12 years of a neighbourhood dispute, mainly because I was short and not built like a brick shit house, and I had a bad neighbour. But as I acted as a man, nobody would have known that I was either bisexual or that I was transgender. I covered it up very well. When I came out, the first time I dressed, actually, I was terrified, I must admit. And
what did you wear? Can you remember?
Oh, I can't remember. I looked crap, actually. I had somebody dress me up and had a bloody horrible wig on and bleeding makeup. I looked absolutely awful. I've got a picture of it at home, actually. But I always knew I could do better, right? And it was kind of a learning curve for me. But the first time I came out, I was dressed out, I must say it was terrifying. But it was also a big release, you know, that things were moving on, you know. People obviously stared, I suppose, they must have done, but I think I went to places where people wouldn't necessarily stare. I kind of went to the back door, you know, rather than sort of walk the streets. Now I go anywhere, you know, it doesn't matter where I go.
So you can't actually remember how you dealt with that process, no?
No, I've probably dealt with it by the fact that it was something I such needed to do,
right,
that even if the whole world had turned on me, I would have done it, you know, I think. And
because you was doing it, and then you didn't really care.
And then I was with other people who was encouraging me to do it as well. And, you know, so but my reason to do it was that I had to do it, and it led on to the next stage of my development, if you like. The fact that I knew, because I wanted to be female all my life, and the chance to actually just go out and be seen as female, even if I looked absolutely rubbish, you know, it was for me, it was something else. It really was.
Well, at least you got started. That's amazing.
It was a start, yes. It was probably a rough start, But
it was a start.
it's something that I'm more glad I did. You
This
know,
is it.
yeah.
Everything starts at the beginning, eh?
It does indeed.
This is
Yes.
it.
So I learned a lot since then.
Okay, so has the transition been worth maybe the stick that you get off some people? Obviously, you know, you can.
I can say without a doubt it has been well worth it.
Of course.
I would much rather not been born with gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
But having been born with gender dysphoria, whatever price I've had to pay, and I've lost friends over it. You know, I've even been spat at by children as young as 3 years old. It's a price worth paying just to be myself. And I think if anybody needs to be themselves, the price you have to pay is, it doesn't matter, you've got to pay that price. So it's been well worth paying. And in a way, I'm kind of glad that I was a man, I suppose, to a certain extent, because I had some wonderful children, yeah, and I've got some wonderful grandchildren, and they support me. And if what I understand of a lot of trans people in my situation, they don't get the support of the family, where by and large, most of my family, my children particularly, have stood by me. And I have to say, without their strength, I would not have been kept going, because it has got really hard at times. And I've had mental breakdowns and such, you know, like times I've wondered whether it's better to jump out of bed or jump out of a window, to be honest with you. You know, it's been a tough choice at times, and I owe it to my children to have got where I am. But I've forgotten what your question was in the first place. So
I believe you answered it anyway. So yeah, was it worth going through the stick?
it was well worth, Terry.
Of course.
To get where I am now, and my life has changed 110%. It is well worth it. I mean, I used to be a lorry driver, and I'd be driving a 40-foot truck down the road, and I'd have some horrible thoughts coming in my head that how easy it was just to drive that truck off the road and end it all, you know. And I knew to become who I really was, I would have to change my life 110%, 200%, and I've done that. You know, but the price I've had to pay to do that, it is well worth it, and I would urge anyone if they're in the same situation as I am to make that choice to do it, because you only live once, it's my life, you know, and no one knows how I feel, and I've got square with myself at the end of the day, and that's what I've done.
Know yourself.
Know yourself. The worst thing about being transgender is, I think, being misgendered. When people turn around and call you sir, you know, when they know full well you don't want to be called sir. The worst thing about...
What do you think? I mean, do you think that's... Because the people don't understand the subject? Not subject, I know that's stupid, but I mean...
I think it's a lot of things. It's several reasons. One reason I think it is because they know they can't turn around and be kind of nasty to you, but they can sort of be a bit sort of... stealth by mistake, you know what I mean? They can say, call you sir, but say, oh, I didn't mean that, you know, and kind of sort of, it's kind of like saying, oh, I knew, you haven't fooled me, like, you know. A lot of it is ignorance, and a lot of people don't generally look, because unfortunately I have a male voice, and I will never get rid of that. I have tried. So if you don't actually look and you don't concentrate what you're doing, you hear me talk. I mean, I have to admit, it's understandable, you might say sir, you know, but if someone's looked at me and they've already taken me in, and they say sir, that's when I usually take offence to it, you know. But misgendering, I think, for what I understand from other transgender people, is one of the most hurtful things that can happen, because you know, you've plucked up the courage to go outside in some cases. You know, you hope you're looking your best, and somebody turns around and calls you a man when you're trying to be a lady.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a rub in the face, really, because I mean, if I was to turn around and call a fella a woman, just for the hell of it, they wouldn't like it. You know, so when they turn around and call us the opposite of what we want to be, or present ourselves, it's no different, really, you know.
I mean, I've been to Thailand a few times, and obviously you have lady boys.
Next time, you take me. I'll have a quick
but
shot when I'm out there. Yes.
It appears to be viewed so much differently. Like, you know, it's obviously I don't speak Thai, so you don't know what they say, but it's accepted. You know, it's not looked down upon. Obviously, here it's such a... You know,
it's a taboo situation.
So far backwards that everybody generally jumps on the bandwagon with the majority of the opinion, and I think, you know,
opinion is certainly changing, but it's a long time in the coming, and there's lots of people out there who would like to turn the clock back. But with regards to some countries like Thailand, you know, they accept it, so why can't we? I don't know. You know, but again, I think we've got a bit of a macho sort of mentality, haven't we? Like, you know, a man is a man, that sort of thing, you know. But it don't always work that way, because there's no such thing as there isn't a two-gender system. There's God knows how many different gender identities there are. I just happen to be a different identity than other people. You know, it's nothing different. I knew it's how I feel inside. You know, I can't do anything about that.
Okay, so let's move on. So what has been the best thing?
Now that's a good one. The best thing I must say is having boobs, breasts, my boobies. I tell you, I really must admit.
Why is that?
I think it's because there's really isn't. I'm trying to think the right words. More obvious sign of femininity, I think, you know, of a woman than having breasts.
Do you look at them a lot?
Mine or yours? Or not mine or yours. Sorry, mine or somebody else's.
You can look at mine if you want.
Yeah, we've got it done.
If I can look at yours.
Do I look at them a lot? I do like to see if they're growing, check them out. Yeah. I like to look after them as such, but obviously I look at them a lot.
How long does it take?
Oh, too long. To be honest with you, that's how long is a piece of string, really. You know, it depends how you're built. I mean, I take the hormones and
years.
Probably will be years. Yeah, I mean, this is about a couple of years growth, I suppose. So I'm hoping for a little more yet, but.
And they just keep developing to.
To be honest, I really don't know how it all works, Terry, to be honest with you. But I just know I keep hoping they'll develop. And in the mornings I wake up and check that they're still there. Yes, they're there. You know, hope they're going to grow a little more. But how long they're going to take, I have no idea.
And what happens if you stop taking the tablets? Do they just go away again, or?
I hope not. I don't think so. No, because once breast growth is there, it's there. Right. They might go string back a little bit. I don't know. You know, again, I'm more concerned with getting them than actually not losing them, if you know what I mean. So I'll keep taking tablets as long as I can get hold of them. You know, I love hormones, so that tastes nice as well.
It's all good.
Yeah, they're fabulous. It's really, yes.
It's all good.
I'd say that's the one thing that's really. Although another thing I have. It really has encouraged me awfully is the fact that I'm actually accepted. I'm treated as female everywhere I go. That's how I want to be. And it's, although I get misgendered like everybody else does, and I get a bit of sticker like everybody else does, I don't get an awful lot, not compared to how I'm accepted, you know. And that, for me, is such a fabulous thing. It takes a bit getting used to.
I mean, you seem like a bit of a celebrity, I'll be honest with you.
Well, never that so much. I'm just me.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, actually, I can say, having someone open the door for me, I must admit, takes me getting used to. I have to take a second sort of think for a second, you know. And then there's sort of things I used to do as a fella, you know, like repair cars. Nobody asks me how to repair a car now because I'm a bit sexist. I don't think I can do it. You know, but it's just wonderful being who I know I should have been. You know, it really is. I couldn't actually explain adequately to anybody how I feel, you know, inside. But just to say, thank God there is such thing as hormones, you know, and I just thank God I can do this. For me, it has saved my life, there's no denying that.
Good.
Yeah.
So what is your advice to people who want to go through the transition but maybe too scared, I assume, you know, to actually do it is probably scary?
I would say follow your heart. If you really want to do it, you'll do it no matter what the cost, you know. And it could be, I would have done this even if it meant losing my family. Mm-hmm. If it meant losing everybody in the world, I would have had to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think if you really have gender dysphoria, you will follow your heart no matter what. You'll get to the point where you have to.
Because the consequences...
Yeah, I'm not doing it. I know for some people it's very scary. It was scary for me. But the advice I'm going to say is just be yourself and do it, you know. And if it doesn't work out, and you
do you recommend going down the cross-dressing path? I mean, is that? I'm not saying that's obviously to ease somebody in to a transition at the beginning.
Oh yeah, you would. I think you'd be kind of foolish to suddenly put on a dress and walk outside your house.
Yeah.
You know, I think you would be wise to do it a little bit at a time. Mm. You know, and that may be that all you want to do is you just have the need to cross-dress now and again. I say it was more for me, and a lot of people are quite happy just to do that, and that's for them it's great, you know.
Yeah.
All the more for power to them. Mm. But if you really have gender dysphoria, I think you have to, in the end, it has to evolve, and you have to go down the path. Whether you go down the path and have the operation, the sex realignment surgery, I've no idea. That's a personal thing.
Do they have like advice support networks?
Oh yeah,
or something,
there's lots of support. There's lots of people you can ask. Psychiatrists, etc. So you don't just like turn up one day and they chop it off the next, whatever.
No, but not like a psychiatrist to say like you've been thinking about it for a while, but you don't want to go and talk to any professional, but you want to talk to other people that have gone through it, just to talk to them to see if they can identify with you and maybe
I think that there is, but I think you also have to take what people say. I don't mean just but just a bit. Be careful what other people say, because it's always from their point of view.
Yeah.
There are some people who will have the operation, and there have been some people who have actually written books, etc., that they wish to God they hadn't done it.
Right.
But they have reasons for having it in the first place might be different than yours. I mean, it's great to talk to people and get different points of view of it, but in the end, it's got to be your choice. You have to walk this path for yourself, not for anybody else.
Do psychiatrists know about this?
Oh yeah, it's pretty well.
I keep saying subject, I'll be honest with you, and I'm feeling guilty every time I say it. I mean, it shouldn't be...
Therapist might be the right word. I'm not sure myself, to be honest with you.
Right.
But say you got Charing Cross Hospital, which I go to. There's 2 or 3 in England, I think, you go to. And you have to talk, so they talk to you reasons why, and, try. So it's not taken lightly. But the end result is you have to do it yourself, because it's a path that nobody's going to thank you for doing it up in yourself. You'll lose, you might not lose all your friends, but I don't think I know of anybody who hasn't lost a lot from just trying to be themselves. Yeah.
Very good. Okay. So when I saw you last, you joked when we talked about friends. You're like, "What are friends?" So I mean, you joked, but is there any truth in it? Obviously, being transgender, you find it harder to make friends, obviously.
I find it harder to lose friends. Easier to lose friends, shall I say?
Because of what?
Because of who I am. I lost a lot of friends when I came out. Matter of fact, I lost all my friends. I haven't really got a friend I don't suppose I've had more than 3 years.
But say like new friends.
New friends? Well, no. I actually find it easier to make friends. I know more people now since I've come out than I ever have in my life.
Is that because they know you as you,
and they know me as me,
comparing you before and stuff?
That's it, they know me. And they're genuine people that I meet. I know, like, lesbian people, like gay guys. I know straight people, women and men. And all those who know me now...
Not gay, sort of like...
Anyway, right, sweetheart, I make up for that.
Of course,
What's that called me short?
Undo your bra strap or something.
Yeah, very a lot easier, a lot more comfy. Because I can be myself with people. You see, before I would have to make. If I had a friend, it's always in the back of my mind that I have to make sure they don't realise who I really am or see my real feelings. So there's always that sort of a falseness to it. But now when I meet someone, I can be me, and if they don't like who they see, well, that's fair enough. Go on their way.
That's the same with everybody, though, right?
Yeah.
You like me for me, or don't like me, don't hang about with me. Don't
So there's no pretending who I am. This is who I am. This is who you're going to get tomorrow. You're going to get the next day, and you're going to get for the rest of my life. This is me. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Right. So how's your family reacted? We've kind of discussed that. Obviously, some of your family have supported you. Obviously.
Well, I've got a son who I don't get on with.
Because.
I don't know. It's hard to say, really. It just hasn't worked out. We say with me and my son. But
was that before the transition?
Before, actually. It's been ongoing issues before.
Right, yeah.
But maybe it'll come round, I don't know.
Okay.
But I've got 2, get it right in a minute, I'll get told if I don't. 2 daughters and think about, 2 daughters and 1 son. That's it, who actually support me very, very well, actually. And the grandchildren support me,
How do your grandchildren chat? I've met one of you, I've met your
Well, they take it... it's nothing to them,
Yeah, of course.
See that they can call me granddad, they can call me what they like. I don't say to anybody, my family, my children, that they have to call me mum or anything like that. They can call me how they feel.
How do their friends know?
Everybody knows their friends. I mean, as far as I know, they don't seem to have any problems. I think, to be honest with you, if they had a friend who didn't like it, I don't think they'd have that friend very long. I think my children would soon put them in that place, But
good for them.
Yeah. But they seem to be quite open. I mean, in that respect, my children do. So, I don't. I might say my grandchildren. They seem they like me. You know. I seem to get on well with children. I don't know. Maybe it's because they see. They see who I am. There's nothing hidden. This is who I am. You know. Maybe that's because I'm open. Just by being me, I'm open. You know. And that's I seem to find a lot easier.
So I've known you for a while, Poppy, and obviously when people disrespect you in some way, you report it. Why do you do that rather than just ignore it?
The why I do it is pretty to answer that question. The why I do it is because the police, who I get on well with, and I think do a fabulous job, you know, considering what they have to put up with, want to know and they need to know, well, this happens. And it's also that by my report and my doing something about it, it makes it the next person who goes out, like myself, if they may not get that abuse. The next person that person abuses might really find it hurtful. Whereas me, I don't like it, and it doesn't necessarily knock me off my feet, but it could really destroy the confidence of another person. And in fact, it's wrong. You know, this day and age.
Yeah.
There's no reason why I always. I sound like a Chinaman then, don't I? Why I always have to do it is because I cannot look at myself in the mirror and think that I've let someone misgender me or be nasty to me and not stood up for myself, because I have to live with myself for being who I am.
I think if you accept it though, then nothing gets done about it.
No,
does it?
no,
you know, you just
no.
accept
Well, that's
that we
it.
get treated
No,
wrong, and
you know, why should they? Because why should anybody have a right to say anything about me?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And I won't stand by that. Even to the point I feel, well, I would probably put myself in danger. I would do something, try to do something about it, you know, because it's wrong. It's just I have to live with myself, and
I think everybody knows what is right and what's wrong, generally, but not everybody abides by that.
No. Because it's easy for somebody to call someone a name, but they don't know how it feels inside when you say it to that person, and it really can hurt. It may show on the outside, but that person will no doubt relive that moment over and over again in their head. And so for me, it's just something I have to do. You know.
I mean, most people probably been treated unfairly in their lives, and they know that it doesn't feel right yet.
But they'll do it to somebody else.
No problem doing it to someone else. You know, I mean, nobody's perfect, but I mean, you know, why jump on this bandwagon?
We all have. We've got the same feelings.
Yeah.
But, you know, why? But there are those people who take pleasure out of saying things against other people. It doesn't matter who they are. You know, disabled or whatever.
Yeah.
They will do it, and they should not be allowed to do it. I don't think.
Very good. Okay, so the final question is, how much harder is it to find a partner?
Now that's a good one. I'm still looking, but I think it's very hard because it's having people accept you as you are. You've got to find someone who's going to accept you as you are, right? And
have you had a partner since you?
No, I haven't. No, and I would like one, but having said that, I've also got the problem where it's trust as well. You see, I've had my heart broken a few times, like everybody else has. Whether that was due to me being transgender, it probably wasn't, because when I was married, I wasn't who I was. It's a matter of trusting people. It takes a lot harder, I think, to trust people when you're.
Do you get the interest?
Yeah. Probably the wrong sort of interest sometimes, I think. You know. Yeah, you get the interest, like, but I haven't yet found Mr. or Mrs. Right. I'm still looking, but
would you go either way, Mr. or Mrs. Right?
Well, of course I would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Yeah. You know, if they
both.
What, at the same time? Yeah, I'm open to anybody. I am, you know, but they have to be the right person. To be honest with you, you know, if they rock my boat, shall we say, then that's fine. You know, but I think it's a lot harder being transgender because your options are limited to a certain extent.
Do you have dating websites for transgender?
There are loads out there, but unfortunately, I have to say, a lot of the people who go on these dating websites are not they're not there for romance, you know. Shall we say that they're a bit shady, shall we say? You know, so it's for a transgender person to it's a lot harder. As I think, definitely.
Does that get you down?
Yes, it does actually. Yeah. But again, it's a price I've got to pay, you know, and it's a price I'll happily pay to be who I am. You know, it does get me down, actually, yeah. And life does get lonely at times, like everybody else, you know. I'm no different than anybody else. Next question.
So there we go. Date Poppy. Obviously covered that. So Now it's to get to know Poppy as an individual, okay? So first question, we'll make them snappy and quick, okay? Who is your hero?
Yeah, I haven't got no snappy answers. I haven't got one.
No hero whatsoever.
I never have had a hero, to be honest with you.
Myself?
You're my hero, darling.
Of course.
You are,
there we go, there's that one covered.
There is my hero.
No hero. If you could live anywhere, where would it be?
Ah, that's another good question. I would somewhere where I'm accepted, I think. You know.
Right, yeah.
I haven't got an answer to that one either, actually. You know.
Okay, righto. We're doing well.
We are doing well so far, yes.
What makes you laugh most? Oh dear, we're in trouble.
You see,
this is where we get to know Poppy and we found nothing.
I don't know really, I just spontaneous laughter. I think there's lots of things that make me laugh. But I wouldn't say it makes me laugh the most. I couldn't really answer that unless I sat down for 10 minutes and thought about it or had a really long conversation. So
okay, then.
I can't answer that one.
If you could do anything for a day, what would it be?
Well, it would have been actually be a woman, but I am that now. Anything for the day. Again, these questions.
Oh no! What's
and I
going
never
on?
thought, you know, I don't know really.
You're short for words.
I am lost for words today.
Damn.
Yes, it's very unusual for me to be lost for words.
What would you sing at karaoke?
Oh, I like that. That's a good one. A good song. I know that I was singing, but I cannot think of the name. And you don't want me to sing it now, do you?
No, I just want you to give us the name.
I used to like that one, Rose Garden, in Lynn Anderson. I used to sing that one a lot. You know, I beg your pardon, Rose Garden. I used to sing that. And I probably would sing that as well, because I know the words to it. I would probably sing sort of, not so much modern songs, more sort of like 70s, 80s kind of songs.
Okay, this is snap quick question. Okay. So, who would you want to be stranded on a desert island with?
That bird out of Darling Buds of May. You know, I can't remember what her name was now. Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah.
Possibly as she was,
yes.
not as she is now so much.
What would you like to be doing in 5 years' time?
Oh, what I'm doing now, I suppose, really, being me, having a...
But career-wise, where you want
career-wise, no, I'm quite happy because I started a job as a carer.
Right,
and
yeah.
I'm quite happy just being a carer.
Yeah. What about you, like poetry and things like that? I mean, you...
Well, I don't...
Just a hobby?
It's just a hobby, but I may write more later on. Well, it's just a hobby, really.
Okay, let's move on. We can get all these done. Who would you like to play you in a movie of your life? Catherine Zeta-Jones?
No, I'd like you to do it and see you dressed up.
Of course. We can do that Saturday.
Yes,
I don't know.
Yes.
Of course.
Again, I have no idea, actually, who would play me.
This is it.
Who would want to play me?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wish you would come back into fashion? Something that's out of fashion that you wish you could come back?
No, because I'd wear it anyhow. You know, regardless of fashion or not.
It doesn't matter. Good answer. Right, last question. What is the one thing that should be taught in school that isn't?
Ah, that's a good one. I should think the one thing is acceptance, actually. You know, I'm just trying to say how not to be bigoted to people. I'm trying to find the right word, actually. The one word to it. But to understand everybody's different.
Understand people in general. I mean, you know, that's the problem a lot in life, you know.
Yeah.
So
to understand how wrong it is to bigotry, how wrong it is to judge people.
Yes.
Yeah. Is what I would say. That's quite a big circle of things, but it means the same thing. You know, acceptance of everybody for who they are, no matter what they are.
On that note, lovely. Thank you very much.
It's been great.
You've been great.
Yeah.
It's all good. Poppy Rose.